Good evening, you sussy bakas. My name is For Extraordinaire, and I think we have some pretty good news coming out of Humankind. There is a new modder on the block, and he has released a fairly substantial mod. I believe his name is KcaztheMighty. That's the man who posted the list of comprehensive changes for these cultures on the subreddit, and by no means are these changes official, but there are some nice changes to kind of wait in between the next patch and just try to test out these fan-made changes. A lot of people have been speculating about how to change and buff or nerf some of the cultures, like the more overpowered ones such as the Egyptians, and then the weaker ones like the Hittites. So there's been a lot of speculation, but now we actually have modding tools available to kind of go into that and get into the big details. So let me talk about this modder's work and try to discuss it and see if I agree or disagree with the changes. Before I start, I want to say that I have no affiliation with this modder in particular. I just thought the mod was interesting, and I am also not exactly a pro-Humankind gamer, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. That said, I do have experience with Humankind. I've been playing the game more and more with the Dia de los Muertes update kind of spicing things up, I think. So I really hope that some of these changes are intuitive and thoughtful. Anyhow, let's go through each of the eras. I want to start off with the Ancient Era, as I believe that is always the most impactful, as it's kind of your first culture you choose, and it really defines how you play your, or really shape your initial play style. So for the Ancient Era, we have the Assyrians first, and their EQ now adds +5 stability and counts as a garrison. I found that kind of weird because their EQ never really counted. The Danu never counted as a garrison, and it never got those bonuses, so it didn't really scale later on. And then the +5 stability is always very, very good. I'd also like for the EQ to kind of have the same influence. Someone mentioned this. I think their balance mod is a different one on the Discord, but basically, because the Kothons and the Dunu can be built on outposts, they actually don't count as emblematic quarters and get their bonuses on normal cities, so they're losing out on some culture later on, which is very, very disappointing. So I'd like to see them get that extra culture buff and kind of be counted as regular emblematic quarters on outposts. And then I think for the Hittites, their emblematic quarter now adds +2 additional influence, which will help with kind of an expansionist focus, as well as I think supplementing their increased movement with their chariots. Speaking of increased movement, though, we have the Egyptians, and their Markabata archer had its EU strength reduced to 19. No other changes. I thought that was a bit unfortunate because I think their production can go a bit bonkers. Maybe that's more so due to the builders mode, but they have had a small nerf to their Markabata archer, so it has its movement speed, but its strength is just a little bit weaker now. The Mycenaeans actually had a reduced stability to their emblematic quarter, the Cyclopean Fortress, which is very, very good, as you can kind of spam it in new cities. Not necessarily spam it, but you can just put it all, start building a Cyclopean Fortress, immediately on your first city and put it anywhere within that region and get the best Maker's Quarters spot immediately. Very, very consistent. The Olmecs, these guys definitely need a buff, and I was kind of saddened they didn't get a buff with the Ancient Era patch and the Dia de los Muertes patch in particular. So the Olmecs have a legacy trait buff, and they have now +2 influence per territory. It was originally +1. So they're going to be getting some big influence buffs from this little mod. And then the emblematic quarter has a flat influence bonus increased to +2. And then the adjacency bonus was also increased to +2. So basically how it works is the Olmec's Colossal Head gets +1 normally in the base game, +1 influence from adjacent farmers' quarters. Now it has +2 from that, and then +2 from these territories. So theoretically, you could be getting a solid just +20 influence alone if you have like three or so territories. You're getting 6 from that, and then you have a decent farmers' quarter setup going on with the Colossal Heads. For the Phoenicians, we have some wonderful news in the form that the emblematic quarter, which I believe is the only emblematic quarter that has to be researched, no longer has to be researched with this mod, which is fantastic news, as it really, really slowed down progression, I think, just having to invest just to unlock an emblematic quarter compared to some of the amazing emblematic quarters with the Egyptians that you could get out ASAP, and they would provide influence and tons of production or things like that. The Classical Era has some more complex changes, but there are not as many changes to specific cultures. So, for example, there's only 5 cultures, I believe, or 4, that have received changes. However, they are a bit more significant, as the Axumites have their legacy trait having more money on tiles producing money, which is going to be very, very good. I'm not sure about this change because that +5 extra gold, I find that they have a very, very interesting balance between religion and money. I think that +5 gold might be a bit too much, as +5 money on tiles producing money. Well, there's not going to be that many money producing tiles, and it will make market quarters more valuable as a kind of resource and commodity to the Axomites. The +5 money might go a bit overboard, as they are already very good being merchants at kind of accumulating that money. The Goths, though, which I think this is a very reasonable change, the iron requirement for their emblematic unit, the Gothic Cavalry, which is a light cavalry, is reduced to 1, so you no longer have to have 2 iron for that. And then the emblematic quarter, the Tumulus, which is centered around faith and influence, no longer reduces public order, which I think this is a typo. I think they mean stability. And it counts as a commons quarter now, so it's going to be increasing stability, and you already kind of center it around your other districts. That's how you get your, I think, influence or faith bonus, and that's just going to be very meaningful as a change, and it'll, I think, just be overall much more thorough and consistent in helping the Goths build a stable city, and not just being focused around kind of ransacking and pillaging other people. So very meaningful changes to the Goths. The Maya, however, have a emblematic unit poison debuff, and that reduces combat strength by 2, and their range is no longer reduced by 1, and it has something weird going on with direct fire. I almost said emblematic fire, but direct fire, where the javelin archers and the noble javelineers basically cannot shoot over mountains or over weird hills. They have to be at least like 2 tiles close to the units, and that kind of leads to some complications with how they aim and kind of pin down people. So very interesting. I'm surprised they actually didn't nerf any of the Maya's industries, though it's, I think, great that they are showing some love to the Maya, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't actually show any love to the Olmecs and their noble javelineers. However, I think this is just the first change to the patch. The Romans have a emblematic unit, which is unlocked at Conquest. So it's a bit earlier, I believe, and then the emblematic quarter has a base stability increase of +5. It counts as a commons quarter and provides commons quarter adjacency bonuses, and then the influence bonus on victorious cities is increased to +1. I was also thinking, and this may be just a pipe dream, but maybe, I don't know how hard this would be to code, but the Triumphant Arc could have something along the lines of having a temporary bonus, and I'm not sure if a similar bonus is already in the game, but perhaps having a bonus depending on how many battles you've won, and each time you've won a battle with a significant advantage or something like that, you could have a temporary stability or influence buff to kind of bring your cities up and stabilize them during times of war. So that could be, I think it could allow the Romans to be maybe a bit more pacifist even in terms of winning defensive battles if they want to go for a less militarized culture later on and just kind of work on other issues like money or gathering influence. So that's just an idea of mine. I think I'll end this video out with the medieval changes, as they are also quite significant. The Aztecs now have their emblematic quarter, which is a unique temple. I don't play them too much, but their emblematic quarter counts as a commons quarter now, which is a much needed change, as I think it adds some nuance to them, not just being purely war focused, and it provides a commons quarter adjacency bonus, kind of similar to the Goths changes. And then the Byzantines LT bonus, their legacy trait, is increased to plus 10% gold per alliance. I don't know if that's necessarily needed. The Byzantines were already very, very good at accumulating gold. If anything, I'd like to see that alliance bonus change to something like influence instead of gold, because just being purely money focused, while that's kind of what you want with merchants, I'd like to see some nuance, kind of like with what expansionists have in some of the other broader categories. Just being purely money focused can be a bit bland, because I feel like once you've played one merchant culture, you've kind of played them all, bar like the Axomites, which have some kind of faith kind of fusion going on there. The English EQ has a bit of a smaller change. The emblematic quarter now counts as a garrison, similar to the new changes. It has some buffs with regard to garrison infrastructure. And then the Franks EQ now provides influence per any adjacent district. This is actually a change back to the previous patch, Dia de los Muertes, or the Fabius Maximus patch. For those of you who don't know, the Scriptorium, I believe it's pronounced, has only, it was changed to have only influence being provided by adjacent research quarters instead of just any quarter. And I already thought the Scriptorium was fairly average, maybe slightly above average. So I don't know why the devs changed that. I'm glad to see that was kind of changed back. Now we move on to some horses, with the Ghanaians having an emblematic unit strength increased at 36. I think the Ghanaians were one of the more underwhelming medieval era cultures. I think the Byzantines really outshined them. And then the Mongols had their legacy trait changed to +2 movement on cavalry. I think the Mongols were already quite strong, so I don't know if this is necessarily very needed. I don't think the Mongols are in any dire need of a buff compared to some of the other cultures like the Assyrians and the Hittites, but I mean, you do you. I don't necessarily agree with this buff, though. And then the Umayyads had their legacy trait increased to +10 science per alliance, and then the emblematic unit now only requires 2 horses, and I think their emblematic unit is called the Haras, and then the Ghanaians' emblematic unit is called the Mesarist, something with mess, I think, in the stem of the word. Anyhow, I do kind of ending the video with the medieval era cultures. I think I'm a bit more divided on them. I don't know if they're as creative as I'd like them to be. I think they just kind of make the cultures better at what they already do instead of kind of diversifying them. And while that's all fine, I don't necessarily agree with it because there's already a lot of cultures that kind of are very specialized towards what they do. And I'd like to see some more diversity in terms of their play styles in Pacific. So I'm fine with certain cultures just being very good at what they do, but in terms of just hammering down and kind of focusing more in on that, I don't necessarily agree with that. Kind of like with the Umayyads, I think they're already very, very good at science, and I'd kind of like to see more focus on their faith aspect, or maybe something regarding perhaps influence from faith, something like that. But that's just my personal opinion. You may very well disagree with me, and if you do, please let me know how you would change some of these cultures in the comment section below. I don't exactly have enough time to go over all these cultures. My phone is dying out, and I wanted to get this done as soon as the mod released. I want to talk about some of the more impactful culture changes in the first 3 eras, as I always love to kind of play around with them. I don't have necessarily as much expertise with the later 2 eras, and I'm just okay on the early modern era, so I just wanted to give you guys some feedback on, or just get your attention about this mod. It's very interesting. I might try some of the changes out, give you my feedback, if the mod creator is even watching this, and just try to let you guys know the mod is out there, and I think this modding community has some really promising starts. I know it's going to take a while. I think someone on the Discord, JNR, said there is definitely going to be a wait time in terms of getting meaningful mods out, as it takes a long time to kind of program these, and I think player enthusiasm necessarily isn't at an all-time high like it was at the start. So later on, hopefully we see some very impactful changes. This mod already goes above and beyond, especially since modding tools were recently released, in terms of just adding tons of balance changes. So glad to see that the community is already kind of interacting with the modding tools, but I'll try not to just ramble on for too long. This has been 4 Extraordinaire, and if you guys did enjoy the video, I will be having some more videos regarding Humankind modding if you like this video, but if you do, leave a like and subscribe, and I also have a video out on the Dia de los Muertes patch if you need a quick update and you're getting back into the game. So if you want to check that out, it should be in the top right hand corner of the screen. Otherwise, this has been 4 Extraordinaire. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you guys for supporting the channel. Love you guys. Hope to see you later, and I will leave a link to the mod description, or a link to the mod in the bottom description. All right, thanks. Peace.